Submitting for discussion, this is the powertrain I'm using in my hybrid truck build. This is the 86 Honda Shadow 1100cc engine. The way I'm going to be adapting it is, you'll see that right around here is the output of the shaft drive. That actually looks like this. I've gone ahead and torn apart one from a different bike. I actually have two parts bikes. So this is the output of the motorcycle. It is about an inch across. I'm going to have a machinist adapt this, possibly also beef it up so that I can adapt to this flange. This flange is actually a CV shaft from a BMW all-wheel drive. It's designed to handle a lot more horsepower and RPMs than this unit is actually outputting. Now, then, in order to get that to the diff, I'm having the machinists make an adapter for the other end. Both ends are the same flange style, which, as you can see, is really beefy. What they'll do is basically make a cover plate, which then has the adapter over top. I don't know whether they will machine it from one piece or how they'll do it. I am not a machinist. I just know what I want. Somewhere on that will also be a pulley. The reason there's going to be a pulley is I'm going to have this big ass electric motor, which you can see with the size chart we have here, is about 11 inches by 11 inches. This here puts out 28 horsepower and 118 pounds of torque. I will probably always refer to it as 120 pounds of torque just because of pissing contests. It's who I am. Then what I will be doing is, off this shaft will be an electric lockup clutch. That clutch will either be spinning free, or when I flip the switch, it will lock up. The plan is to use that at a fully locked status from the get-go. Use the electric motor for takeoffs and reverse. So I'm going to gear it relatively low. Then I'm going to have the motorcycle engine, which will start off the electric motor output. So I'm going to delete the electric start that comes with it and essentially use dumping the clutch on the 5-speed transmission for the motorcycle as a means to start it. I'm hoping that I can remove some moving parts inside the drivetrain because of that. I don't know that for sure until I break it apart and rebuild it. It runs right now, so I haven't done that. I do have another parts bike, like I said, that does not run. It's going to be my mock-up engine, and it's also super low kilometers. So when I actually install one, I'm going to be installing this one. Only thing wrong with it is wiring, but luckily for me, I have wiring that's great over here. Next, moving on, what I will be doing is I'm getting a set of Electron carburetors. These are different. They are a side draft carburetor, whereas this is a down draft, and that will allow the carburetors to, being Electron, to do the work of tuning for me. If you look at Electron carbs, they basically dispense fuel based on air volume passing by and are able to compensate for temperature, altitude, and in some cases, forced induction. Next year, I want to do forced induction, but as soon as those electrons show up, I'm going to get them attached to the running bike here, get that going, and On Monday, I'm taking this to the machine shop so that I can get an adapter made. This is, again, the output of the motorcycle engine, which, although I've cut some parts off, is still sitting in a beautiful engine cradle. I'm going to have this mounted aft of the driver compartment, but as close to the front of the diff as possible. I may have the whole powertrain mounted to the diff with the diff in backwards in various configurations. If I like the weight balance, I may have everything aft of the rear axle, or I may have everything ahead of the rear axle. Haven't really figured that out yet. It depends what the machinists say for the adapters on these guys. Now, the other thing is, this is a 17 and a half inch CV axle. So by the time I get from this to the diff via the motor, I end up with about 36 inches of total distance from the diff. That does put me inside the driver compartment. That being said, if it was a motorcycle, you'd have your legs on either side of the engine. So this will be less raucous than a motorcycle, but louder than a typical truck. Maybe not louder than a straight pipe, but it'll be loud. The other thing I will hope plays a factor in that, though, is that this particular V-twin is actually a single pin crank. So unlike other years that mimic the rumble and lopey idle of a Harley, I've specifically chosen this one because it does not have that. It is less of a revvy engine and more of a low end type of thing, but it does not have that silly Harley idle. And I'm also hoping that with my Electron carbs, that'll be solved as well. Then the exhaust pipes, as you'll see, I'm hoping each side has its own exhaust pipe. They're already symmetrical length. So I'm planning to just have them cut in a certain spot. This one is just tape for my measuring and whatnot. That may not be the official place that it's cut. But from that point to the very tip where the output shaft is where the 36 inches is. So if you see from there up to here is how much would be sticking into the cab. And I'm hoping this turns out on camera, but if you drew a straight line across up here without any type of editing, that is roughly how much would stick into the cab. As far as the vertical amount, it would be about this. So what I'm hoping is either I modify the floor or I can get the machinists to make me a new shaft that is shorter. The reason I chose this particular one is because it came with 2 CVs on the shaft for the same price as an individual CV would have been. That's at Parts Avatar. I will also have in the description, when I put this on YouTube, all the different places you can get these parts. This is a golden motor. This is a Honda Shadow. You can get any motorcycle you want with a shaft drive, but as far as the stuff that you can buy, everything so far I've used is universal. So I'll have a parts list for that, and if you're looking to check me out, my Facebook will be attached. Sorry, my YouTube will be attached. Thanks.